Yeah. It's very nice. There comes the air.
Yes.
Here comes the cool air. The cool air.
Good.
Yeah, he turned it down. My hands are going to get even colder.
Yeah, right. Yeah, what is it up there, Christian?
Not bad. All right. Good morning. I would like to welcome you all to this Board of Fremont County Commissioners, even as we call this meeting to order. I would like to invite you all to stand for an invocation by Joe Garkovich from Mercy Today Ministries, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning, Joe.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for another day in which to serve you. As we gather this morning to do this important work, we pray that we would listen to each other's opinions and treat each other with dignity and respect, that you would bless us all with wisdom and courage and compassion to make decisions for all that are involved to the best of our abilities. And we also lift up in prayer this morning our county employees who are outside working, that you would grant them safety and safe travels to and from where they are working. And all these prayers we send to you in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
Commissioner McFall.
Present.
Commissioner Payne.
Present.
County Attorney Jackson.
Present.
County Manager Bryant.
Present.
Planning and Zoning Director Garrett.
Present.
All right, we turn next to the approval of today's agenda, and I believe we have a couple of changes to make.
Madam Chair, we do. We need to, under the consent agenda, we need to add a public hearing scheduled for March 10th, 2020 at 10 o'clock, and that will be for amendments to the Fremont County ambulance regulations.
So that will be item under consent agenda,
Number-
item 7C.
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
And then, one more change.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Hold on.
We need to, under the new business for consideration, we need to remove number 2, which is approval of Fremont County procurement policy. We need to remove that.
Okay.
With those changes, I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve today's agenda with the following changes: adding consent agenda item number 7C, scheduling a public hearing March 10th at 10 a.m. for an amendment to the Fremont County ambulance regulations, and removing item 2 under new business, which we will add to an agenda in the future. Further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We turn next to today's consent agenda.
With that added, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
With notation of,
Oh, I'm going to note those.
okay, I'll second it.
I can do that.
You can do that.
Yes, I can. All right. I would like to note with today's consent agenda, we are scheduling three separate public hearings, all to be held on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020, beginning at 10 a.m. Item 1 will be a single-family owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program through the Upper Arkansas Area Council of Governments concerning a community development block grant. Item B will be a special review use 20-001 Phantom Canyon Estates, requesting approval for a special review use for a travel trailer park and campground located off County Road 67 north of U.S. Highway 50. And the third, as just explained, will be the amendment to the Fremont County ambulance regulations. Is there further discussion on today's consent agenda? Roll call.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We turn next to administrative and informational topics. Up first, we have a county clerk's monthly report from our county clerk, Mr. Grantham. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Madam Chair, sorry.
I'm not a mister.
Before my monthly report, I just wanted to remind people that ballots were put in the mail yesterday, and we started with a new vendor last year that ended up getting the mail to our county in about 2 days. So expect our presidential primary ballots to be in your on your doorstep or in your mailbox tomorrow and going on Thursday, Friday. So I just thought I'd give everybody a heads up. Presidential primary election has started. On to my clerk's report. Total motor vehicle fees, sales taxes, and recording fees collected for January of this year were $1,122,491.47. Fremont County's portion for disbursement is $634,150.17, which is 56% of the total fees and is $26,108.32 more than January of last year. Year to date, our office is up $26,108.32.
That's great news. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Move to accept the county clerk's monthly report.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to accept the county clerk's monthly report. Further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we have a county manager's report from Sunny Bryant. Good morning, Sunny.
Good morning. So I just wanted to give a quick update. Last week, I actually was able to attend the Colorado City and County Management Association Conference, and it was a wonderful time to network with other city and county officials, and I have some great ideas that I've brought back that I'm excited to work on throughout the year to better improve my service to the citizens of Fremont County. And then the last thing that I want to discuss is when John Grayson updated our county website, he actually added a feature, and I'm going to pull it up here so that everybody can see it. So if you go to the Fremont County website, which is www.fremontco.com, and this is the homepage of the website, which he's done a tremendous job on. But what I want to show everybody is if you scroll down about halfway down the page on the left-hand side, there's a button that says sign up for email subscriptions. So if you click on that section there, there's a list of items that you are able to actually go and click on, enter your email address, and then any updates that are posted to those web pages, it will email you with a notification that something has been updated. So this is ways that we're trying to improve communication with the citizens, and so we hope that everybody would find that useful moving forward. So I just wanted to let people know that this is an option.
All right. Thank you so much, Sunny. Staff and elected officials, gentlemen, anything to report this morning?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm thankful for all this snow. I know some people think it's too much at once, but we had such a dry January and kind of November, December as well. So I think the snow is great, and hopefully that'll help us prevent some wildfires. So always looking ahead to that wildfire season. So everybody be vigilant, but drive safe right there as it's icy out there now.
Commissioner Payne?
Good. Thank you.
I would just like to make a note that this is a really exciting time for Fremont County. I have the opportunity to serve on Fremont's Exceptional Women's Committee, and we have just released the 15 names of our finalists for the awards this year. The event will be held on Friday, March 13th, beginning at 6 p.m. at E-Free Church. This is a ticketed dinner. You must have tickets to attend, and you can get those tickets either at the Canyon City Chamber of Commerce or online at canyоncity.com. And the names of those 15 have been released, so you'll be seeing a lot more of those in the days to come. So we invite you all to come and help us celebrate these incredible women that we have right here in Fremont County. Okay, up next, we have citizens who wish to address the commissioners on a matter not scheduled on today's agenda. We do have one request from Mr. George Story. Good morning, George.
Morning, George.
Morning, George.
Good morning, everyone. I'm George Story. And first I'm going to give you the bad news, and then I'm going to give you the good news.
All right.
Okay, first, we've lost at least 900 Chinese who've died from the virus in China. And we've got 40,000 Chinese who are infected with the virus. And we've got 100 million people in China in lockdown. They basically were infected with the virus from animals. But now I'm going to give you the good news. There's actually a pharmaceutical lab in San Diego, California, that's developing a vaccine to eradicate this deadly coronavirus that was started in central China and Wuhan, China. And basically, hopefully, this will help eradicate this deadly virus. Thanks for letting me speak. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George. You as well. Is there anyone else who would like to address the commissioners at this time? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. We have no old business for consideration today. We do have one item of new business, and I would like to call Fremont County Sheriff Alan Cooper up. We have recognition of a former sheriff's deputy for his life-saving efforts through the administration of Narcan. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning.
Morning.
Last BOCC meeting, I recognized two deputies, Sergeant Johnston and Deputy Colton Miller, for their service to not only this agency, but in Colton Miller's case, the administration of Narcan to save a life. There was one other deputy with Deputy Miller that day, and that was Deputy Jeremy Amendola. You get to come on up now. And so I want to recognize Jeremy Amendola for his life-saving efforts in the administration of Narcan and present him with this certificate of recognition.
Jeremy. She wants a picture.
So you never miss a photo.
That's right. Tim, you want to run down and jump in?
You never miss those.
Oh, one more? Hold on, one more?
Oh. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you so much. Sheriff, thanks. Thanks for being here this morning.
And it's always a pleasure to recognize the folks that I work with and the folks that serve Fremont County. Thank you.
We are pleased to be able to do that as well, so thank you. There being no further business for consideration, we will now take a recess until 10 a.m. We have a public hearing scheduled at that time for a conditional use permit, Dawson Gold major modification. I would remind you, if you wish to speak during that public hearing, please fill out an informational slip and turn it into our clerk and reporter before. All right, we'll take a recess until 10 a.m.
I have the stuff upstairs, but I thought I'd make sure.
I had to look it up. Thought that's what it was.
So, because the sheriff is done this, makes me feel like if we go back to
since I came out on the
You can.
concentrate.
Amazing that something so simple could have literally made her run. You know? They're doing well. Yeah, he's doing good. He is. He's in Buena Vista today, and then has to go down to Trinidad and then back out to Folsom, and so he's kind of making a good circuit. That's cool. That's wow. No. The only time we've been out of school for that long is when the boys had a stomach bug. Well, I'm very sorry to hear about Marty. Well, it's very sad to see that. And
The ladies' room is out of paper towels. Text, whatever magic you feel like. Fine, we're gonna have some outside.
they can't get their hands washed.
We thought we'd introduce ourselves. John James Mercy.
Oh, I talked to your attorney yesterday.
Yes, and we wanted.
I just want to say thank you for working with her. Oh, sure.
It was too short a notice for her to come.
That's a long way to come. On a couple days notice.
So we appreciate you helping us.
Yeah, we'll probably follow up after the meeting. I'm sure she'll have some more questions.
And we reference your name in our remarks.
Oh, okay.
Saying that there's no intent to maintain the road, the county does have an intent to maintain the road, or at least at this time or something.
Right.
So I just wanted to say hello and warn
Before
you.
before you in vain.
And so, Exactly. So, yeah. And thanks for talking with Kim. And we look forward to working together. So, thank you.
Thanks for introducing us. Look at you guys multitask.
Is that enough the right thing to say?
Yeah, it did.
Cause you problems if we say something like that?
Well, I got my information from the road director. The maintenance of the road, the reason that it's not a huge issue in my mind is even if the county's not going to maintain it, if this application is granted and the need is that's going to be spent. So if it needs to be maintained, it'll probably be privately maintained with county oversight, so. Okay.
I don't want to say something that's going to put you in the back of the
Makes all this look hard. Well, it does. I'm just.
Those chairs do.
It's too, it's too bad you can't convince, I don't know, like wood shop in high schools to do this.
You're right.
Sets of benches, and stain them and everything, make them look pretty good. It's actually 4 chairs.
Is that about what it is?
Yeah.
So the question will be, well, instead of chairs, you do benches, but you do 4 sets of benches. That way you still have walkways. And then in rows, pews. Yeah, it's no pews. No, this meeting is not canceled. Press the refresh button. It's up there in the mail phone. That's right. Yeah. And your phone's playing truth song. To 8.
I need a nap.
You got this.
You're probably sleeping a little bit, but I've been up since about 8 minutes till 3. So. My doc's got me up. What happened?
And this is a request for resolution.
I'm sorry.
Request for resolution. Which is really
It's
nonsense.
confusing, but got it.
Why can't we just have a resolution?
Because he doesn't know what the action is going to be.
It's resolution. I think it's a
Right, but he prepares it after. I don't know.
minutes on my end. Yes, it is.
What?
But that's okay.
Your fellow commissioner going to be back before 10 o'clock?
Should we say this is Dr. Valentine?
I think he's MIA. Depends on who you want.
Since we just did the
Fair enough.
it's best to put it all under SRP.
I know, right?
Well, the second.
Yeah.
The first one is always we have a soft spot.
Yeah.
Well,
any number by the order that they came in. Some people didn't put for or against. Just put numbers on.
Okay, good, thank you. Because that, we try to do them in the order they come in, so,
I figured that would help.
yes, it does help. Helps maybe keep me straight. You know, he likes using the secret squirrel. We resume and call back to order this meeting of the Fremont County Commissioners. And our next item for business is a public hearing that we had scheduled at 10 a.m. It now is 10 a.m. So I will call this public hearing. So opening this public hearing is for a CUP conditional use permit 12-003 Dawson Gold major modification. They're requesting approval for a major modification to expand the boundary area of the existing CUP that was granted for exploration. The expansion will add acreage to the west of the current boundary of the CUP. So before we get started this morning, we have some ground rules that your chair is going to be setting. Everyone who wishes to speak must first fill out an information slip. You'll find those on the table right back there. Turn it into our county clerk if you have not done so already. We will call you up in the order that you signed up as much as possible. Each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak. No speaker may donate their time to another speaker, and you will receive a 1-minute warning. All comments must be directed toward this board. Do not direct your comments or questions to the applicant or to a representative or to another individual or to the audience at large. Also, we ask that you do not read statements that already have been submitted as a part of the record. This results in unnecessary duplication of comments. Do not read us letters we already have because they will receive the same full weight that your testimony here today also will receive. I'm asking you to all be kind to one another. Make your point in a civil manner. Avoid personal attacks against others. Be respectful of all who speak. Avoid grandstanding with outbursts of applause, cheering, booing, or similar disrespectful displays. Keep in mind the intent of this public hearing. This is not an application to mine. This is an application to expand the boundary area of an existing conditional use permit for exploration. All right, we turn now to the applicant to present. I believe we have with us this morning Dr. Angela Bellantoni. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning. Yes, I am Dr. Angela Bellantoni, and I'm with Environmental Alternatives. And I would like to introduce to you, can you hear me now? Is that better? Sorry.
There you go. Now
Sorry.
we can hear you.
I'd like to introduce, today we have with us from Zephyr, Will Felderhoff. He's the executive chairman of Zephyr. Little project history in the area is that mining and exploration began in this area in 1898. The Copper King mine actually processed minerals there at the smelter that was known as the American Lead Zinc Smelter in Canyon City, that is southwest of town. And that modern day exploration did begin in the 1970s and has been intermittent until recently, which has been pretty regular every year since Zephyr took over. We have, regarding, this is BLM mining area, this is BLM land, and BLM has 3 types of mining claims. Just a little, because they each have different jurisdiction and rights to the owners of those mines. So we have patented load claims. And in this map that you can really see well, I can see, you have, here's one right here, a patented load claim. There's one down here. There's a whole bunch of them over in the current CUP boundary. The federal government passed its title to the claimant for this land. These private patented load claims are in fact private land that allows the owners to follow veins or lodes of mineral-bearing rock down dip. So it's described as meets and boundaries, and it is considered a private property ownership, kind of like your parcel that you have your home on. We have placer claims, and well, there isn't a placer claim inside here, but there is a placer claim here of Fremont. There's the American, there's the Diamond, there's the Judith placer claims. Placer claims typically are on unconsolidated materials such as sand and gravel, and this material may contain mineral, and it is described in aliquot, section, township, reigns, quarters. Then we have unpatented claims, and you will probably hear me refer to them as the shoeboxes. And they set in here like shoeboxes, side by side, next to each other. And these are claims called unpatented claims that are leased. There is a lease with the federal government to extract the minerals. The land remains in the ownership of the federal government, but the leaseholder can extract the minerals. Zephyr has all three types of these claims. If we take a minute and look at back in your section on your property, there's the old SAMS map. And this is the old, back in the 1970s boundaries. And you can see in this map the shoebox claims, you can see the patented claims, and you can see the placer claims. So that all three types are in this property interest. Zephyr's CUP map, the green boundary, is the 2012 approved boundary. There is an extension of property to the east. They own unpatented claims to the east, which is a buffer. Notice that it's outside of the conditional use boundary, and there is no request to extend that direction. The extension before you today is to the west. And this is BLM ground. It has a few patented claims in it, and it has inside of it a Colorado State Section 16. So with this project, you can see there's extensive government oversight because all of these governments, the BLM, Colorado State Land Board, and of course Fremont County and the state of Colorado have oversight. So the BLM, which is the majority of the land out here, a plan of operations was submitted for exploration in this area on June 21st. Zephyr, Mr. Comperdo, and Welderhoff met with Stephanie Carter and Keith Berger, the BLM, on August 1st to discuss this project. They are also, Mr. Felderhoff and I will be meeting with them again this afternoon. We received a request for additional information on December 23rd. I responded with that information on January 6th. We have since received an additional request for information on Thursday last week, and I am meeting with Stephanie Carter tomorrow morning at 8:30 to go over that request to make sure that I fulfill that obligation. The BLM, in their review of the plan of ops, will perform a rigorous environmental assessment, coming up with an environmental impact statement. And included in your packet is the Colorado State Land Board's environmental assessment and all of their specialist report. So I anticipate that the one from the BLM will be as rigorous, if not more so, reviewing many of the aspects that are concerns for people today. The Colorado State Land Board, during their lease application on this section right here, section 16, their experts investigated the impact to wildlife, surface water, native vegetation, and the lease conditions for that request by Zephyr included mitigating conditions, which is why Zephyr can only, in the Section 16, explore during July 1st and October 30th. It's why they have to have a 500-foot setback. It also includes a provision there is no mining in that section. All of these are restrictive to be protective of the nature and the availability of the ground for other people to use. Zephyr, Mr. Comperdo, and Felderhoff met with representatives of the Colorado State Land Board as recently as December 9th, and there is a letter in your packet that is, please may I have, I think it's still there. It's the PowerPoint. County at a glance. So you can see how the Colorado State Land Board funds work. And it is, there you go. All right. Now can I use this? Really? Okay. So you have this in your packet. It's probably old information to you. And this money, of course, the school sections, the school districts get to apply for projects. And, down here at the bottom, it is the awards that came from this very money that goes to the State Land Board. So Zephyr, by being able to do exploration on Section 16, pays lease, and then we'll pay royalties to the state of Colorado, which will then go into this fund. The next agency that has oversight is the Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety. And depending on the decision of this board, the notice of intent, there we go, notice to intent, thank you. Modification number 5 will be submitted that will include all aspects of your decisions, your conditions, because I'm trying to have one document so all agencies have the same information. Disturbance to date. Disturbance to date, just to keep this in mind. 7,078, that's a little over 1.5 miles of linear feet have been disturbed inside the current CUP boundary. Zephyr proposed 9,805, but they were able to obtain the information they needed in only 7,078 linear feet. The drill pads, in order to minimize and control the disturbance, are built inside of mountain roads as much as possible. They have disturbed to date 4.89 acres. 4.89 acres of 560 plus acres in the conditional use permit. They proposed to disturb 6.77 acres. So their work today is less than the amount that they proposed. In October of 2019, they reclaimed 0.33 acres. So now their disturbance is reduced to 4.56 acres. This shows that they are aware of and work to minimize their disturbance, and they do respond to the reclamation requirements. Currently, the bond stands with Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety for 92,655 acres, and it covers 7.8 acres. So at this point, Zephyr is substantially over bonded, but they don't mind because they want to be sure that everybody feels comfortable with their project. Okay. Where do I point? I'll point at Sean. You're not advancing. This isn't advancing. Let's try this. Got it. Where did I go?
It's okay. We're good. We're good.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I want. Proposed exploration activity inside of the proposed expansion area is a touch complicated because of this map. This map, you can see, this is private claims. Okay, so you can see private land ownership. Private land ownership. These right here are private land ownership. You see state section. You have a pink outlined area, Grape Creek. This is an area of critical environmental concern. So from now henceforth, I'll probably call ACEC. Then you have the Grape Creek Wilderness Study Areas. And as you can see, section 16, smack dab in the middle of that. And so as Zephyr has prepared its conditional use, its plan of operations, Zephyr assumed that these conditions of the lease within section 16 would be at least necessary as mitigating measures to be protective of the environment and water resources, wildlife inside these areas. Okay. I also would like to distinguish between a drill pad and a drill platform. So just as a whole, we have a drilling operation. A drilling operation when a drill rig is on site. This is not when they're building things and leveling and doing grading or whatever they have to do. But when a drill rig is set up, they will operate 24/7. And they are pulling core out of the ground. There's a geologist there tagging it, labeling it, and putting it into the core shed. When there is 24/7 drilling, then it reduces the number of days that the drill rig is set up on site. It also, because of reducing the days on site, reduces the impact to any other patrons of the property and to wildlife. Depending on the depth of the hole, it can take 10 to 20 days, and of course if there's any challenges with the equipment, because we all know equipment never breaks down. To minimize the ground disturbance, they perform directional drilling. So once they establish a pad, modern technology allows them to go in multiple directions, which is also another reason that they don't need to extend to the east, because they can set up in the current conditional use permit if they feel it's necessary to confirm the deposit, and they can do directional drilling and not disturb anybody. And they can reset direction of their drill within just a few hours. So we're most accustomed to traditional wheel-mounted drill rigs. These take a drill pad that is sat on the ground. You might have seen them over the last few years. This traditional drilling will be used in non-wilderness or non-ACE areas. This will not be used in the Colorado state land. The directional drilling, again, is minimized if they can do multiple directions from one. The new technique will be a helicopter transport exploration that is platform-based. And in Mr. Felderhoff's presentation, you will actually see some of these that are constructed in very remote areas. A drill platform is typically 30 feet by 30 feet, wooden platform that they construct on the sides of the hills. There's absolutely no roads. That was also one of the conditions of the Colorado State Land Board. There can be no roads. County concerns that came up during the Planning Commission, and we've heard from the opposition, is that Zephyr is Cripple Creek, doesn't want it to be Cripple Creek. Zephyr has said from the outset that it is, if the deposit is proven, because of the depth of the deposit, and again, Mr. Felderhoff will talk more to this, it's an underground mining operation. It's not just that, it's a 21st century mining operation. And you need to stop and think about that, because in your mind, when did Cripple Creek start? Things have changed since then. This operation has also been compared to Cotter Corporation, which was an admirable corporation, but it was a milling operation. This is an underground mine operation. Both mining and environmental protection have benefited from decades of technology and engineering advances. The fire department has weighed in. Water is on each drill site. It has to be, because it's needed to drill. So it is there. Traffic. There is an approved access on County Road 3A, and it was approved in 2012. County Road 20X already exists, and it's in a condition that will allow for the passage of the pickup trucks and the drill rig, and that's all that has to happen on that road. The weed control plan, during the review by the Colorado State Land Board, vegetation is a challenge in the area. There hasn't been, it's just native vegetation. And the Colorado State Land Board is actually looking forward to some reclamation effort because there is a lot of weed out there and there has been no activity. So to that, any reclamation will help that. In addition, there is a commitment to meet with the Fremont County wildlife specialists when we can get out to the site, which of course isn't right now.
Wildlife specialist?
Weed control specialist. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Water is being leased from the Upper Arkansas Water Conservation District. The lease has been signed and executed. Planning Commission members expressed some concern regarding the impact to wildlife. And again, I'm going to reiterate that Section 16 was a state experts reviewed, evaluated, and investigated the area, which led to the lease conditions. We expect the same thing to happen from the US BLM. I would like to show you a picture of, there's a concern about nighttime. That's what you were seeing here. How the lights, and you notice how dark it is, just feet beyond that drill pad right there. And that looks like it's a platform, a wooden platform. So when lights are used for the 24/7, this is not a 40-foot high fairgrounds type thing for safety for parking areas. This is directed at the drill rig. There is one. Again, notice how dark it is in such a short distance. This gentleman's foot is almost in the shadow, and he's standing right next to the drill platform. I don't know what I'm supposed to point at, Sean.
You can just give her the computer down there.
Give her the circles.
Computer.
Bring that surface over here.
Battery's going down on the clicker.
Thanks, Sunny.
Then I can just go enter, just like the old time, and I don't have. Thank you. Okay, so in here you can actually see that the backs of the drillers are dark. This is another example of nighttime lighting on a drill pad. And bear in mind too, this is 3 to 7 miles west of the current conditional use boundary. So, in conclusion, I would like to respectfully request approval of Zephyr's expansion to the exploration boundary. This is an addition of approximately 3 acres in a 25-acre area. And that is in the US BLM Plan of Operations, and that is in your packet as well. So 3 acres in a 25-acre area. Since 2012, there have been a total of 350 days of exploration. So over the last 7 years, there has been approximately 250 days of activity, which averages out to 35 days a year of activity on the site. There is substantial regulatory oversight. This is not in anybody's backyard. This is 3 to 7 miles west in remote areas where there's minimal access and there are no roads. There will be no roads. We are requesting a 10-year life on this conditional use permit rather than the previous short-term requests that we have had. This will align with the Colorado State Land Board lease, and it also should provide sufficient time to determine the presence of commercially viable mineral deposits. It's interesting that those people, those individuals, those residents who oppose this project will rely on, their lives are dependent on metals in vehicles, electronics, our infrastructure, every single day, right here, right here. We've watched 60-minute articles, we've read or listened to articles in the news regarding mining and milling in other nations, And some of these nations are not as rigorous or responsible or aware of safety, environmental concerns. We hear frustration from Americans when good mining jobs and good manufacturing jobs leave our nation because it's less expensive where it doesn't cost. You don't have to pay the price to be environmentally aware. This doesn't reduce the demand for those goods that are metal-based. And I'm going to go back to our reliance on electronics. Zephyr is a Colorado base. Zephyr is a North American company that accepts the extra effort and cost of environmental compliance. This resource has the potential to make available metals for industrial and manufacturing business that currently rely on imported metals from countries less environmentally responsible than the U.S. This resource has the potential to make available to North American companies, North American natural resources, resulting in a North American economy that is less dependent on imported metals. Zephyr, again, is a 21st century metal exploration company who complies with 21st century regulations. And they're building a business that accepts the expense of being a responsible corporate citizen, both economically and environmentally. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Felderhoff. Okay. So here. 3 acres and 2,500. Did you correct me this time? Did I say 25?
She did.
It was your story.
3 acres and 2,500 plus acres. Okay, so thank you. So here we go. There you start.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go away.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning.
You don't need this if you do this, and here is your pointer. No, your pointer is right here. Oh, there you go. All right.
Right, so I'm the executive chairman of
Can we get you a little
Minerals.
closer to the microphone,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
No problem. So I'm the executive chairman of Zephyr Minerals Limited, and our group has been active here since 2012 on this project. And since that time, we've probably spent somewhere in excess of $2 million exploring these claims. During that time, we've completed several drill programs. And I should add that this project has had active exploration on it since 1979. And since that time, something in the order of 130 drill holes have been put down on this project, totaling something like over 75,000 feet of drill core. So that's, 13 or 14 miles of drill core. So that's a lot of core. We have all of that core, virtually all of it, stored in our core library in our facility here in Canyon City. We can access that core at any time, and we do as we gain knowledge on our programs. We look back at old drill core to see what it's telling us. It's a building process. It has been for some time, and it will continue to be so. We do not have a commercially viable deposit at this point in time. Obviously, we hope to find a commercially viable deposit, and our programs are directed towards actually finding this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to raise the capital to do these programs. And I should add that, we've heard in the past that this company's always broke. I'd like to say that we don't have cash flow. All our capital is raised in the capital markets. And we raise capital as we need it for our programs and as the market dictates and our programs dictate. And if we see our share price undervalued, we like to raise less capital because it means less dilution for our shareholders. But I'd like to add that there's not a single entity in Canyon City that we've done business with that have not had their bills paid. Angela's been working for us since 2012. Angela, have all our bills been paid on time?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we do not undertake any work without first having the funds in place to do it. So having said that, I just want to go through the presentation shortly, which is a short presentation. I'll try to explain a little bit of geology, which I think is relevant for people to understand why we're here and what we're aiming to do. Our management, this is all on our website so people can see all this. I won't go through in detail. Warren is the president and CEO. He's not here today, obviously. He's based in Calgary. Myself, I've been in the business for over 47 years. And I'll tell you, my history actually goes back a little ways here. Back in the 1980s, I headed up a company called Jascan Resources, Inc. And I'd actually bought this project from the U.S. Borax and RTZ company in 1986 and moved this project forward to 1989 before my company got taken over by another Toronto company. So I've been coming back here. My history goes back some ways here. And I think there's a lot of potential here. That's why I came back in 2012. So John Clark, I won't go into these details. He's our CFO. He's a chartered accountant. He's also on the board of Vista Gold, which is based in Colorado Springs, or Denver rather. And most important addition to our group here recently is Dr. Paul Spry. And I'll go into more details as to how he got involved in a moment. But Dr. Paul Spry is a world-renowned expert on Broken Hill-type silver, lead, zinc deposits. Very, very brilliant man. He's got, if you Google his name, something over 100 technical papers will come up. He's been all over the world. He knows these things inside out. He's our technical advisor. So our property location, you can see where we're located. There's Canyon City, there's the Dawson Green Mountain property, Cripple Creek, and the Blue Star. So obviously we're here because we think Colorado is a mining-friendly state. I mean, the state of Colorado was built on mining. There's no question of the historical significance of mining here. We're close to infrastructure and industrial support, which is also a very important factor when a company looks for mineral deposits. We've always talked about underground mining. There is no potential whatsoever in our claims for an open pit mine, and there will be an open pit mine. And we recognize that, but we also believe there's an advantage to that because an underground mine has a much, much smaller environmental footprint. So we like that as well. So our go-forward strategy is a dual strategy. First of all, we're silver-based metal hunting, elephant hunting, and I'll explain why we use the word elephant in a moment. And secondly, expanding our gold resources. And this has been our focus for the greater period of the last 6 or 7 years. But more recently, we started to focus on this, and I'll explain that in a moment. We have a resource in the Dawson section of about 130,000 ounces of gold. It's high grade, about 10 or 12 grams per ton, over an average width of about 10 to 12 feet, with widths up to 45 feet. And I'll show you that in the slide momentarily. We've probably since then maybe outlined another 20,000 ounces, so we might be up to about 150. Now, we'd probably want to double that before we actually make a production decision, or at least start on a feasibility study to determine if it's commercially viable. So we have a ways to go. And the Green Mountain area is an area we just picked up here in the last year or so. I'll show you that on the slide here. Okay, so this is a Google Earth shot of the area we're talking about. So all those shoebox claims that Angela was talking about, you see them all lined up here. Those are all the unpatented claims. That's state section 16. The green claims are our patented lode claims and our placer claim. So these yellow lines you see here, that's the trace on the surface of our mineralized trend. That's our target for exploration for mineral deposits. Originally, this was all one straight line, but fault structures have dislocated it into 3 distinct zones. Our effort in the past has always been focused in here, and that's the site of our current resource. I think Dawson Ranch might be in here. Now, you see the scale here. There's probably over a mile distance between Dawson Ranch and our deposit, and there's a ridge in here that separates us as well from them. So I told you about the ounces we have here and the footage that we drilled, and this is our gold focus in here. But we saw over here in Green Mountain that there were rocks over here similar to what we had over here. There's a sulfide zone here which was mined here in the past as well. So we did some prospecting here about 2 years ago and found rock types that were carrying gold identical to what we had in Dawson. So we thought, oh, this is very interesting. This looks like a spot we should be looking at more closely. So we acquired this patented claim and staked all these claims. That's a distance of about 5 kilometers, which is about 3 miles. Once we had done that, Lauren had received a phone call from Dr. Paul Spry in the University of Iowa. He's an economic geology professor there. And he's told Lauren, he said, look, he said, I know that area. He said, one of my students did a master's thesis there about 10 or 12 years ago. He said, when I stood on the rocks there, he said, I saw rock types there that were virtually identical to Broken Hill in Australia. So we were taken aback by that. He said, so I think you guys are looking at potential what we call a Broken Hill type system, geological system here, with potential to find that type of deposit. This was, like a eureka moment for us, there's no question. So when we found that out, we staked additional claims here, and then got busy staking claims in here, and then started our negotiations with the State of Colorado Land Board for the State Section 16, which we recently signed up and announced about, I guess, 6 or 7 months ago. So we're going to focus mostly on the Del Plomo section, and the reason why I say that is because I was saying earlier we're elephant hunting, and I'll show you why in a moment. But these deposits, although you see 3 straight lines here, that was all one straight line at one time before that got broken up. And even earlier, that was flat. It was on the ocean bottom. Back at 1.6, 1.8 billion years ago, we were talking about an ocean floor, vents coming up, depositing metals on the ocean floor. Over the millennia, those rocks got tilted over and are now vertical. So now I'm going to show you a long section through here, which is a slice through the earth going straight down. So here you have a section. There's the Dawson section with the gold, Green Mountain section with gold. And what we see is what happened here is a huge fault here called the Ilse fault. This is recognized. This is a fault that we have determined from our own work. And this section here has been dropped down relative to the area on the right and the left. So this used to be over here and here as well, but it got eroded away. And this is a preserved remnant. This is about 3.2 kilometers, which would be about, I guess, 2 miles maybe long. So if you go down deep enough here in the lead zinc silver zone, you will find the copper gold down here at depth. We don't know exactly where that line is. But this is our area of exploration for the El Plomo BHT target. And that's our focus, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So we're hunting for a Broken Hill type deposit, which is very rare. They're an unknown in North America at present. So the Broken Hill deposit itself is in Broken Hill, Australia, discovered in 1880, and extremely large, the largest base metal silver deposit ever in the world. And today's dollars would be worth something in the order of 150 to 160 billion dollars. That's B for billion, not million. So that's huge. In 1990, Broken Hill Propriety, the company that owned this, were running out of ore. So they thought, well, we got to find another one of these. So they did a very detailed geochemical study around the mine site of Broken Hill and determined that there was a special mineral called gannite, which occurred around their deposit. So they looked all over Australia in the right age of rocks for this gannite and found it about 400 miles to the north in an area called Cannington. And they didn't see anything on surface except for this gannite mineral. And but they also knew that the Broken Hill deposit is magnetic. So they did an airborne magnetic survey and came up with a magnetic anomaly at Cannington. And you have to remember, this is blind. So they drilled that anomaly. In drill hole number 3, they hit 45 million tons of high-grade ore, which in today's dollars would be worth $25 billion. That's why we call this elephant hunting. If we found a twin to this is what we're looking for, you're talking about a $25 billion deposit. Cannington was the lowest and largest cost silver producer in the world for 20 years. So some key geological similarities is the Proterozoic age of the rocks. You have to be in this window of time, which is 1.8 to 1.6 billion years ago. Outside that window, you will not find these deposits. We have those ages of rocks in our area here in the Dawson area and Green Mountain, El Plomo. This Pathfinder mineral gannite, we have that from my property, one end to the other. And particularly this very special one, a zinc-rich one, which is the one you're looking for. And in fact, Dr. Spry told me, he said, look, he said, Will, he said, outside of Broken Hill, the largest concentration of gannite occurrences in the world is in central West Colorado. I mean, that's pretty unique and special. There's no question. So in the magnetic signature, we did an airborne survey, which you're all aware of last summer. And I'll show you in a moment. We got some excellent results. We're very, very pleased. And numerous other similarities, which I won't bother you with right now, but there's plenty that I can talk about. So here's what we call a Paleoproterozoic craton map, and this is what the Earth looked like 1.8 billion years ago. There's Australia, and there's the U.S. California wasn't even formed at that time. Australia was believed to be docked right onto Arizona. So there's this blue trend of rocks you see through here. There's Broken Hill, Australia. There's Jerome District in Arizona. And there's the Dawson project. So we're in the right age of the rocks here, and we think it's a very unique position to be in. So going back here, I'm going to focus primarily on the El Plomo section now to talk about that a bit. Then I'll talk a little bit about the Green Mountain area. So this is work that my company did back in 1987. This is the El Plomo section, about 2 miles distance here between the Green Mountain and Dawson section. All these little prospects, there's 35 different prospects that follow the trend of this mineralized horizon, which is continuous from one end to the other. Here's a list of the 35 prospects. And several of these were mined in the past on a small scale, particularly this one here. There's some gauze in here at the El Plomo. And there was some drilling done here by U.S. Borax, and also a couple holes up here. Those holes are put down 1979, 1981, which I'll show you in a minute. Here's some of the rock types. Just some pictures here. This is rock set from our project here, and the ones on the bottom here from Broken Hill, Australia, virtually identical. And one of the reasons why the magnetic survey was so important to us and why we were so pleased with the results, this is a piece of drill core from the 1981 drill hole by U.S. Borax, GC9, at a depth of 186 feet. Grades almost over 9% zinc. And it was that magnetic, you could pick it up with a magnet. I mean, this is tremendous for us. I mean, so what we're looking for, I'll show you in a minute, is magnetic mineralization like this at depth, except a lot wider. So this is just a diagram, showing the helicopter doing the airborne survey. That's the magnetometer that measures the magnetic intensity, and this is a transmitter loop for electromagnetic conductors. When we did our survey, we flew lines spaced about 300 feet apart. Here are the results of our work. So this is the area we're interested in here. This is the El Plomo section. The red line marks the surface trace of our mineralized zone. And this is our magnetic anomaly of interest in here, which is about 2.5 kilometers long, which would be about 1.5 miles long. Drill holes GC8 and 9 are here, and GC1 and 2 are here. These were holes drilled at borax, as indicated. I'm going to show you a couple of cross sections through here, one here and one here. So once again, you're looking at a slice through the earth vertically straight down. Oops. Before I'm going to do that, I'm going to show you another slide. And that's a longitudinal section straight down along the trend of the mineralization and the anomaly. We did some, after the survey was done, the geophysicist did some 3D, what we call 3D inversion modeling, which enabled us to look at the work in 3D. And these are the anomalies of interest here, here, and here. And this big feature you see here is just reflecting some very, very deep-seated granites on the other side of the fault. The area of interest is from here to here. So GC1 and 2 were drilled in this area, and 8 and 9 in this area. So this is one of the key anomalies we'll be looking to drill test, and also this one. GC8 and 9, I'm going to show you a cross-section straight down here in the next slide. So this is where drill hole 9 was put down. This is the mineralized trend at surface and dipping down 60 degrees to the south. And as you can see, here's the magnetic profile. As you're going from north to south, you can see this magnetic intensity increasing. Then typically, as you get deeper, it should decrease. And what this tells us is that we have a highly magnetic body at depth. So at the peak of the anomaly, we go straight down. This is where our sweet zone would be for a drill target. And as you can see in this drill hole here, we had 2.53 meters of 10% zinc. That would be about 10 feet of 10% zinc. That's high grade. And that was inside of a bigger interval of about 8 meters of 5% zinc, which is about 24 feet, 25 feet. So we have the high grade here, and this is where that piece of magnetic drill core came from. So as you can appreciate, we're quite excited about this. And that's drill hole 2, and once again, narrow, about 0.73 meters, which is probably 2 or 3 feet of 14%, very high grade, and our drill target at depth. And that's a depth of about 800 feet. So we're talking, ways down there. When we get back here to drill, we're going to be, talking 1,800 to 2,000 foot holes. And they were very, very expensive holes because of the helicopter involvement. So this is just showing you, a drill setup in the Canadian art with the helicopter support. and the construction of a wooden platform for drilling in a remote location, similar to what we'd be doing. This is even more extreme, not one I'd want to do. And here's another one. Here's a pad for the helicopter, and you can appreciate the helicopter pilots have to be very, very skilled to be doing this kind of work. And this is a picture of the helicopter drilling that was done on GC-8 back in 1981 by U.S. Borax, a little drill here in the site. The same site back in 1981. And this is where what you see today, you can't even see where it was. It was right in there. Same thing. We barely even know it was ever there. There's the Gaza zone that the old timers had a hole into there. So if we do find a deposit, as we indicated many times, we are not talking about open pit mining. It's going to be underground. In fact, if we find a deposit at El Plomo, it's going to be at least 500 feet down, if not 1,000 feet down. So there's no way ever you're going to ever have an open pit on a project where the deposit is that deep. It's just not. It makes no common sense and is never going to be commercially viable. So what you do is you have to put a ramp down that we also call the decline. And you come underneath the ore body and you mine it from underneath, and you generally have a crusher underground to crush the rock before you take it to surface. So I put this diagram in because the people at the Colorado State Land Board were kind of curious, well, if we're not going to allow you to mine there, why do you even want to drill? Well, we told them, we said, we know we're not going to open pit, and we know it's going to be at depth, so we know also that we're going to probably be well outside of there with our ramp. If we find the deposit at this location, where that dot is, that's 500 feet down, we have to start that ramp 5,000 feet away. That's in this circle here. So anywhere along this circle would be where we would start the ramp. So we're way outside. And then we could be down 1,000 feet, and then we have to start out 10,000 feet out. That puts us in this outer circle for our ramp, for our underground mine. And this is what an underground mine looks like. It's obviously not a huge open pit. It's just a portal with the vehicles going in and out. Underground again. These are all high-paying jobs. These people who do all this work are highly skilled people. Those people probably making generally in the order of $100,000 a year plus. So Green Mountain, as I said earlier, we acquired that area in here because the old mine here, we found samples on the surface that were grading 13.5 grams per ton in rock types identical to Dawson. Never been tested for gold, so we see high potential here. There's a drill hole here which had some high copper, zinc, and silver as well. And this area in here, there's an old showing here which BLM was not even aware of, that we discovered through our staking process. And just a close-up of the claim and some of the drill holes and grades that we're looking at there. The new showing that was discovered. And our airborne survey covered this area as well. We've got a 600-meter or 2,000-foot long airborne electromagnetic anomaly on this particular prospect, which is also quite exciting. So our exploration plans going forward, because of the size of the deposit that we're looking for in El Plomo, just to put it in the equivalency of gold, on the Dawson Green Mountain area, we're hoping to find 1 million ounces of gold. If we hit on El Plomo, that would be equivalent to an 18 or 20 million ounce gold deposit on a dollar value basis. So we're going to be looking for that first, there's no question. And that's what's going to excite the market. And that's what we're raising our capital for. So that's why we call it elephant hunting. On the Dawson Zone, we will continue to drill there after we focus on this. This will be a secondary target now to drill to expand the gold zones. And over in Green Mountain, we've got a lot of basic work to do there before we even start drilling. So that's basically my story. We think that, we've demonstrated over the last 8 years that we've been doing everything correctly. We are committed to doing things properly. We're committed to following all the rules and regulations. We have demonstrated that we have done so. We will continue to do so going forward. We're strictly doing exploration at this stage, and I hope that you will receive us favorably and grant the CUP. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I would ask my fellow commissioners if you have any questions of clarification at this point for the applicant.
Yeah, the GC2, GC9, and GC8 in that state-owned, how close is that to Grape Creek? Those?
I have to go back. They might have been within 500 feet. I'd have to go back and look. They were drilled by U.S. Borax in 1979, 1981. So, you know, I'd have to look at the map.
Okay, well, I guess
but
my
we're not.
point-
We cannot drill within 500 feet.
500 feet of Grape Creek itself, so you have to go back, and that's where your intercept comes in?
Yes, intercept we much farther to the south, right? Because it's dipping away from Grape Creek.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good for now.
Yeah, I'm good for now.
All right, we turn next to our Planning and Zoning Director, Sean Garrett, for a staff report. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. So the department has reviewed the application and found it to be complete and a true representation of the request as stated herein. The department finds that all minimum requirements per the Fremont County zoning resolution will be satisfied by the application. All required postings, mailings, notifications have been completed. There's 4 contingency items. First is approved Fremont County Department of Transportation access permit for County Road 20X. Notice of intent or other approval from BLM, approval from DRMS, and providing the helicopter company name and licenses. There's 3 waiver requests. The first is hard surfacing for the parking area, landscaping of the parking area, and a lighting plan. And then there's 4 recommended conditions. All conditions set forth in the original approval from 2013. Setting surface disturbance area, not exceeding 2 acres annually, and then providing locations of the disturbance area annually, and then adherence to all the state land board requirements regarding section 16.
Any questions for Sean at this time?
Well, yeah, and it may be for you guys. Is there any U.S. Forest Service land involved in this?
Not in the expansion. In the original conditional use permit there was, and I submitted to you the 2012 comments when I contacted the U.S. Forest Service. It's in the original conditional use permit. But there was no activity in the U.S. Forest Service area.
But there's none in this expansion.
Correct.
proposed.
This is all BLM ground.
Okay. Anything else?
We got a letter from Daniel and Anthony Adamic about locking a gate. Would that be considered a condition of this?
We could set the one, so there's a gate on 20X, and they're just asking that that gate be closed and locked, and that Zephyr provide a lock for that, just to ensure that cattle aren't going to get out.
Yes, Zephyr is in agreement and has already arranged the locking of that gate.
Okay.
So I have another question for you, Dr. Valentoni. So what are you doing for waste, human waste, on these field sites?
There is a sanitation closet, actually. I talked to dear Mr. David Howard, and they can helicopter in a cage, the sanitation closet, and they actually have facilities that have a removable tank that can be capped, so the helicopter can actually bring in an empty tank, exchange it with the full tank, and helicopter it out.
And so you need to get approval for that
It's a portable
from the
BLM
Board of Health, correct?
to set up a. Sure. Okay.
With you, yeah, you have to get approval from that from the Board of Health.
Okay. Put it on our contingency, please.
And then I want to fall back to the noxious weed plan for a second. The state land board also says that you have to have a noxious weed plan.
They did their own investigation. So it's the BLM that wants that plan as well.
Okay, so you're going to get with Brittany as soon as stuff starts growing. Obviously, you can't do anything right now because that's pretty important too. That I think needs to be a contingency also. That's all I got for now.
Okay, are we good? Mm-hmm. All right, I think we now are ready for public comment. Our first speaker this morning is Gary Peterson. Gary, would you come on up?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
My name is Gary Peterson, and I am representing a local nonprofit corporation, the Royal Gorge Preservation Project. One note here, critical thinking skills should lead us quite simply to a conclusion that we consider the conditional use permit, but those same skill sets should lead us to understand that there has to be an end result to this interim process, and the end result would be a mining operation, so I just put that out. Now, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I got 6 minutes worth of stuff here. I thought I could get something from somebody else out there. Apparently I can't, so I'll speak quicker and try to get it to the 5. All righty?
Thank you.
You're welcome. The promise of Zephyr Minerals Limited is that it will uncover mineral treasures long buried in the Earth's crust and bring them to the surface for processing. The extraction and processing of those minerals will, according to Zephyr Minerals, provide a flow of revenue to the local governments and community. Zephyr Minerals and unspecified members of our local community would have the public believe that as the mine, its workers, and local governments spend the revenues from mineral extraction, ripples of additional economic activity will somehow boost the local well-being throughout the economy of the town and the county. Mining plans contain enticing promises, but casual observation of other communities that are heavily dependent on mineral extraction does not provide obvious evidence that the promised superior economic well-being or vitality will exist. Mining or oil and gas towns like Vernal, Utah and Wrangley, Colorado, for example, tend to be usually neglected, dirty, have high poverty and unemployment rates, poorer health, and lower educational achievement. Now, this conditional use permit expansion request is an operational part of the process that leads to the development of a full-blown mining operation that has the potential to propel our community into just another dirty little mining community on Colorado's lowermost east-west highway that connects with destinations such as Salida, Montrose, and Points West. Starbucks should probably fare quite well in this regard as a good place to grab a cup of coffee on the way into and out of town. Now, even if you're inclined to approve the expansion, why do so at this particular time? Zephyr currently has no clear legal access to their exploration areas, either on the eastern Dawson section, that isn't done yet, there's still issues there, or on the western or Green Mountain section. Their latest financial statement, dated September 30th, 2019, concluded that the company, quote, did not have sufficient funds to meet its corporate, administrative, and property obligations for the next 12 months, end quote. Also, why are there no apparent considerations for increasing reclamation deposits when they are requesting a tripling of their CUP exploration area? How about the December 23rd, 2019 letter from the BLM to Zephyr outlining a staggering list of unmet information needed before Zephyr can continue their exploration activities? I acknowledge that that was partially cleared up this morning and some of those have been met, but there are still those that are outstanding. Are you going to authorize a permit expansion that requires helicopters and high-end drilling rigs that can bore down to 2,000 feet to meet Zephyr's logistical requirements? That's real money, folks, and all in the absence of their corporate assets. Miners don't build homes near the mine. Local businesses do make with smaller physical facilities than the size of the customer base would otherwise justify. Schools are hesitant to borrow money to support new buildings. Local governments do not put a high priority on adjusting government services to serve what might be a temporary rising population. There's also the likelihood of a boom and bust as employment and payroll associated with the mine goes through expansion during the construction phase, then fluctuating operations, and finally a permanent shutdown because of either exhaustion of commercially viable ore or a long period of low mineral commodity
1 minute.
prices. Will Felderhoff, executive chairman of Zephyr Minerals, has frankly wildly stated that Zephyr has the potential for employing 500 workers at well above average wages. Wow, that's impressive, it would be. However, mining projects usually involve an inflow of miners into the community that are relatively young, male, single in the sense of not being with a family, and pretty well paid compared to the local existing population. Predominantly young, male, single population with money to spend, especially at the size that Mr. Felderhoff has envisioned, inevitably comes into conflict with existing residents and their social values and expectations. Let's look at some of the risks that Fremont County would be, and Canyon City certainly would be exposed to, should a large mineral extraction industry, such as Zephyr Minerals proposes, come into the area. You've got the issue of increased alcohol and substance abuse and the violence, illness, and mortality associated with it. potential for increased violent crime, including the potential for physical and sexual assault, increased pressure on law enforcement agencies because of substantial increases in citizens seeking police assistance in dealing with social problems, increased presence of convicted felons, including drug dealers and registered sex offenders. Don't need more of that in this town.
Mr. Peterson, we need you to go ahead and wrap it up, please.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
We'll get done a paragraph. Thank you.
Thanks.
The need to build or otherwise obtain sufficient housing to accommodate the worker influx with the understanding that this housing will necessarily be largely transient in nature. There it is. I haven't even mentioned the issue of 20 haul trucks a day traversing our city and county roads on the way to and from a processing facility, very possibly the Newmont mine in Cripple Creek. That entails its own nightmare, or the existence of a 1 million-ton tailing storage area 600 vertical feet above the Arkansas River. Last paragraph. It is so very important that the residents of Canyon City and Fremont County be fully informed about the mix of both costs and benefits, rather than a misleading focus by Zephyr Minerals and county officials potentially of a benefits-only promise of mining benefits. There are no viable reasons to encourage our Canadian friends to come here and ravage our community and public lands when the only real benefit from their mining proposal will be to Zephyr Minerals. For Pete's sake, put a hold on this permitting and give the reality of where this is all going a chance to catch up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Up next, David Baggerman.
I'll defer to others in the interest of time.
All right, thank you, sir. Jim Lockhart.
Good morning.
Excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Jim Lockhart. I am the president of Wild Connections, which is an environmental organization which protects land on a landscape-wide basis to allow wildlife to have the ability to move back and forth, which they need ever more in this ever-increasingly humanly populated state. We were the sponsors of the Horseshoe Mountain parcel, which is a Section 36 parcel you've heard referred to earlier, the state land parcel. And so therefore we have an interest in this matter, and also an interest because this whole area is, as we stated in a letter which we sent to the Planning Commission on January 6th, valuable for many different reasons. And I would like to focus today on only one of them, which is that this is largely within a wilderness study area, which is an area which the Bureau of Land Management is required by law to manage in a way which preserves its suitability for wilderness consideration until Congress shall decide otherwise. It literally takes an act of Congress to remove these restrictions. Mention was made earlier of a December 23rd letter from the BLM describing what Zephyr still needs to do in order to get permission from the BLM to operate within this wilderness study area. And the basic requirement is prevention of impairment of suitability of lands for wilderness review. This is the requirement which they impose in the case of mining exploration, specifically under their guidelines for managing wilderness study areas. And as we heard today, this requirement has not yet been met. They're meeting tomorrow with the BLM to talk this over. If what was told to you today was that we would like to put a mine on the edge of the Royal Gorge right next to the bridge, we're meeting with city officials tomorrow and we're confident they'll give us the go-ahead. Would that not raise a red flag? This is not simply a locked gate or a question of how to dispose of human waste. This is a question of the basic ability of Zephyr to operate in the manner they are requesting on the land which the federal government owns and has not yet given the permission. I suggest to you that this is not simply a contingency, but this is a fatal flaw. You really need to wait until they have permission from the landowner, the federal government in this case, to do what they're asking to do before you can give a conditional use permit. You should not give them on a maybe if, maybe someday basis. Thank you.
Thank you. James Mearson. Merson? I apologize for the mispronounced names up here, so just FYI.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I received notice of this application only recently and have had very little time to prepare. But I do have some thoughts on this, and I will have a more sophisticated response, I believe, when I've had more time with my attorney.
Okay. So
just to be upfront about that. I rise to speak in opposition to the major modification of CUP 12003, which raises a question of granting road access versus helicopter access to the Green Mountain Mine. Road access versus helicopter access, that's my basis of concern. I'm not here to discuss the value or of mining in general. I'm concerned about how that mining activity will affect my property by use of a road, that they choose to use a road rather than a helicopter to access their drilling activity. As landowners of the property for over 50 years in Talbot Gulch, we do not believe that what is designated as CR20X is a private road. The county has never maintained that road. No one knows the origins of the road. The history of the designation of the road is not clear. We have pictures to show you that this is really a jeep track or a trail, as it was so designated on appraisal we had in 1996 when we had our property appraised. The appraiser described a trail running through the property. Also, the exact location of the trail has changed significantly with time. The Glen Vista subdivision moved the road, and the county assessor GIS shows an easement that stops right at our property line, and that is apparent on one of those photographs I showed you. I believe that the Zephyr Gold roadway impact analysis in the application falls short of county zoning requirements in several respects. One, it does not appear to be prepared by a Colorado licensed professional engineer or any professional engineer. Two, it does not identify the site distances from access points along the road, stating instead, not available due to remote nature of property. Three, it does not state or estimate the CR20X's maximum capacity or state whether CR20X has capacity to handle the additional estimated average daily traffic, that is 8 trips a day along that road. Four, the estimated width, 15 to 20 feet, seems inconsistent with the photographs that I submitted, that the road's condition do not, looking at those photographs, you can see that the width of 15 to 20 feet is probably not realistic and is not supported by any discernible research or survey. The same applies to the statement that there is 50 feet of right-of-way. It presumes that CR20X will be maintained, stating at number 31 in the application, the proposed use will improve the condition of CR20X since maintenance will be needed for the safe passage of personnel and equipment, end quote. However, Mr. Jackson advised our counsel, our legal counsel, that the county actually has no...
1 minute, yes.
Okay. I would...
finish that sentence, would you?
Pardon me?
Would you finish that sentence?
Okay, the proposed use...
Brenda Jackson has advised our legal...
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't get it wrong. She talked to our counsel, and the county has no plans to begin maintenance of County Road 20X. I have more, but my concern is that the road is not open to the public. It's been locked over 60 years, to my knowledge, and I would like to just take this last minute to say another possible solution to this might be to officially abandon a County Road 2X and 20X, since there's a myriad of questions concerning its purpose its exact location, and if the condition even makes it viable for any purpose. It has been functionally a private road for 60 years and has served the landowners well. And if the road were officially abandoned by the county, we as landowners could continue our mutually beneficial use of the trail and not require the county to maintain, build, survey, indemnify the road. If further development of the road was needed to develop the mine, all the costs and liability could be borne by the parties in need of the improvements. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, Mr. Merson. David Rinke?
I'll pass.
All right, thank you. Roxanne Bradshaw? Good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning. Good morning, Commissioners. And good morning, Mr. Felderoff and Angela. You can take your flak jackets off. I'm not on 500 milligrams for a lung infection that I had the last time you met me, so nice to see you here. I certainly appreciate Wild Connections' presentation here because I think they clearly state some of the legal issues that many of us are concerned about. And I also, I'm speaking this morning personally, and I'm speaking as an individual, even though I bring to you a history of having served as the past chair of the Dawson HOA for a 5-year period of time early on in our formation. And I also currently chair the Fremont School and Public Employees Retirement Association, which we represent 7,000 people in this county alone. And we bring in $70 million a year, which I think is 3.5 times the amount that was stated to you that Zephyr promised on a yearly basis. The reason I'm speaking is because I love this town. I moved back here from the East Coast after spending 25 years in a career on the East Coast. And I came back because this is home. My roots go deep here. I'm a 4th generation in Pueblo County, and I'm a 3rd generation in Custer County. So I take what happens here seriously. And the thing that I was reminded of this week when I drove back into Canyon City, and I always enjoy that drive, coming in as you come around the corner after you've passed through the semi-arid desert, coming from Pueblo to Canyon City, and you see this little verdant village surrounded by mountains, and the beauty of it, which brought us back here for retirement, the beauty of it is overwhelming, and it always has been, and I would hope that it would be into the future. We took a trip 2 weeks ago up to Cripple Creek. I hadn't been there in a while, and as you come over the ridge there, entering from the west end of Cripple Creek, and you hit the general store, and then that valley opens up to you, you see our little mini Reno, but you also see all the devastation that lies beyond that. And the concern I have is, I think that Mr. Felderoff and Angela are serious in what they're saying, that they would hope to maintain this as an underground mine. I'm not sure they will have total control over that after the exploration takes place. They are a development corporation. They are not a mining corporation. We will be vulnerable to whatever the investors and the mining corporations determine to do down the road. That's why I think every decision you make on this end leads us further into a commitment out of personal integrity and out of your own personal integrity and the commitment that you've made to Zephyr, that you will move forward. As you look upon this, though, you may wish that you could make the decision now and not look back upon a decision you wish you could erase. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tom Lambrecht.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for this opportunity to speak. I'm sort of doing it on the behalf of some of my neighbors in Old South Canyon who unfortunately are not as close to retirement as I am. I'm a recent transplant to Canyon City. I'm moving here from Gilpin County, another area known for its gold mining, at one time the richest square mile on earth. And before that, I did my geology degree in St. Louis, Missouri, and I did a bunch of my field work in the Joplin Lead District. Both of those areas obviously are like really good examples of old school mining, not a lot of regulation, and they still bear a lot of scars. In Gilpin in particular, there are areas where I frequently hike, where water comes through tailings piles and emerges with a wonderful orange color. A lot of the residents that live in those gulches are forced to have their water trucked in because any well they shoot is going to come up with arsenic and selenium. And like the spokespeople for I made a brain cramp. Like the spokespeople for the mining company just said, I mean, mining has changed a lot in the 21st century. You know, it's much more advanced, it's much more regulated, but just because it's regulated and that there is oversight that is promised when a mine goes in is absolutely no guarantee that they aren't going to follow the nest. And the concerns that I have, looking at the communications that Royal Gorge Preservation had with you in December, and the communications from the BLM, and then looking over the company's own financial statements, is whether they actually would have the money to cover reclamation, whether they'll have the money to mitigate, whether or not they find gold or not. A lot of companies that are much bigger are much better funded. Rio Tinto comes to mind. Have had episodes where you know, they wound up making a mess. It went into litigation for long periods of time, and eventually maybe, you know, sometimes it was taken care of, sometimes it wasn't taken care of. A lot of the time it winds up being the burden of the local community. A lot of the time it winds up being the burden of the residents and the property owners who are adjacent to the property. So I should say that one of the things that caused me to move here, because people are always asking me when I go into open a bank account or anything else, like, where'd you come from? Oh, like the area, the mountains above Boulder. They're like, oh, and you're moving here. And it's because you have a beautiful place. Fremont County, the town of Canyon City, the Fremont Adventure Recreation Group, I think have shown a lot of foresight into predicting where their dollars are going to be coming from in the future. They're going to be coming from everywhere, the same place that all the other resort towns are getting them in Colorado, in New Mexico, and Utah. And that is outdoor recreation and tourism. Extractive industries at this point, you know, are certainly great. And believe me, I value my cell phone, and I work in information technology. I recognize that we need those metals in order to manufacture the stuff that we like.
1 minute.
But it has to be done in a responsible manner. So a couple of other things that occurred to me while I was listening to the discussion, including the presentation. The helicopters sound like a good idea on the surface, but I think, as has already been pointed out, it's really expensive, which is going to represent a further drain on exploration costs. They're also going to be very impactful. I've spent a fair amount of time riding in helicopters and being under helicopters, and any of you who have done the same thing know that they're not really pleasant. They're not conducive to great hikes or anything like that. Anyway, in closing, I think I would just encourage you to reread what came from Royal Gorge Preservation. Consider the concerns of the BLM, and certainly consider the concerns of those of us who live here and pay taxes here and own property here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambrecht. Mary Delnollinger? I'm so sorry, I'm not quite, could you clue me in? How to pronounce your name?
Dondlinger.
Dollinger, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm here to speak on behalf of a voice that isn't heard, and that's the wildlife. And in research that I've done, vibration, noise affects us all. And we have a choice to stay where we are with that noise if we want to. The animals have no choice except to leave. They have said the lights are contained, and we saw that. But the helicopters that they say they can use from June to October 24/7, 5:30 in the morning till 9 at night. You know, these animals are sensitive to vibrations, noise. It affects how they mate, how they give birth, and they say that we can't do anything from this month to this month, but we can from June to October. Does that mean that the animals aren't affected during that time? No. The woman here at the city council meeting says she lives in Dawson Ranch. The only way she would leave is in a body bag. The animals have no choice. They can either stay with the noise or they can leave. They say that we give money to schools and the children, and they use children as a weapon because our heartstrings are pulled by our children. We want the best for our children. But what do we say to our children when we go out hiking and there are no more animals? Oh, well, they gave us money. What do we say to our grandchildren? The animals are just as important as billions of dollars. We have to think of voices that can't speak for themselves. And I don't think that giving them the CUP to expand and to expand and to expand into their habitat and their place of life. And I think that that needs to be considered, along with all this other, yes, we have the permits, yes, we have done this, yes, we have done that. These are voiceless creatures that are just as important as us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Vince, is that correct? Vines. All right, thank you. Well, I'm, okay.
Thank you. No problem, Mercy. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
I want to show everybody this.
Please address the board, not the audience.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
February the 7th, on the Daily Record, it says Soho Tourism Summit, and it says county to be showcased at 4th annual event.
Thank you.
I'm Susan Larkham Bynes. I live at 429 Grape Creek Drive, and I represent the Hikerettes, which is a Fremont County hiking group. And we strongly believe Fremont County should continue to encourage tourism. Our natural beauty and relatively moderate climate afford visitors with year-round activities. To name a few of these: hiking, biking, technical climbing, zip lining, Royal Gorge Bridge, rafting, 4x4 tours, kayaking, fishing, hunting, wineries, train rides, geology, and farmers markets come to mind. More businesses are coming to our county. Please consider the land in question to remain as it presently is. Let the animals, insects, and trees share their wonders with those who now use the existing trails and paths. Teddy Roosevelt was a wise man in dedicating land to be enjoyed by all those who ventured out. Please consider this. Once it's mined, it's gone. As a PS, even though they say they're not going to be interfering with Grape Creek, it is a downwater. Their exploration is downwater of Grape Creek, and the creek is a source for the Dewey's dye irrigation system. A lot of food is produced because of this water delivery. Please deny Zephyr's request for expansion of their exploration. We're begging you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I've got to run.
Jim Javernick.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Obviously, you know me. I'm Jim Javernick, local businessman. I rise in support of this Zephyr Minerals for two reasons. One, the economic impact it'll bring for our county. As far you get 500 people up there working, earning $100,000 a year. That's $50 million a year coming into our economy. Everyone will buy houses and cars and trucks. Every single piece of equipment Zephyr puts up there to work that mine will pay sales tax, will pay property tax. You guys are going to have a huge economic base as opposed to the prisons where they come in and they're just, no offense, but I think a dead drain on the community other than the payroll, because they pay no taxes for roads. They pay no taxes to help develop the communities. Zephyr Mineral, everybody's worried about what the resource damage they're going to do. Hey, the days of the rapers and scrapers are over. If you doubt it, I'm in the oil business. Come to Colorado and join me dealing with the state of Colorado. There are more rules and more regs on every level, state, federal, and they're involved with the school board. I mean, every one of these have a set of rules. If they cross any of them because of the bad luck they've had in the past, they'll shut them down. You're not going to see this huge negative impact. And as far as the wildlife's very adaptable. If you doubt it, try driving down the street after dark in the city. I mean, the deer have the right of way. So I think this is a great opportunity for Fremont County to get growing and going again instead of stagnating as a backwater. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Gordon. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I live at 1603 Grand Avenue, and my family and I originally moved here in 2000, and we're here for 7 years. Then we moved up to the Springs for 11 years, and then came back here in the end of 2018. And as avid hikers and mountain bikers, we were delighted to see the care that had gone into the very thoughtful development and maintenance of wonderful trails, both hiking and biking, throughout the BLM area that surrounds Canyon City. And it is bringing lots of people here. I mean, every time if you drive 115 to the Springs, you see the bikes or the cars with the bikes coming down here because it's much more, the climate is better for the trails to dry up quickly. So I'm here to speak in opposition of this request from Zephyr and in favor of conservation of wildlands and wilderness. And I'm going to actually read from one of my favorite authors, Terry Tempest Williams, who's been a very vocal advocate for the preservation of wildlands, and she just speaks so beautifully about the importance of it. And I think a decision of this magnitude is made both with the head and the heart. And so these words, I think, are appealing more to your hearts. Wilderness offers us a template to an enlightened citizenship. Instead of only caring for ourselves, we are invited to care for species other than our own. We need to begin to see wilderness in broader terms, a place where ecological health is sustained and environmental justice is maintained for all species. Clean water and clean air are human rights. And this requires taking a long view, just not human rights for us, but for our children and for our grandchildren and many generations to come. By its very nature, wilderness safeguards an intersectionality of concerns. Wild lands that frame our communities contribute to sustainable economies through recreation and tourism. Wilderness fosters a peace of mind that affects our physical and mental health. Forests are a vital source of carbon sequestration. These gifts are not just for us, but are meant to be extended beyond ourselves, beyond our own time. Wilderness is a necessity, not a luxury. Our experiences with the wild strengthen us and provide us with uncommon insights capable of moving us towards an evolutionary grace that enables us to be in relationship with all beings. As humans, we not only evolve in wilderness, but we continue to evolve in wilderness. Wilderness ensures possibilities. Saving wilderness is about saving ourselves, as well as protecting the evolutionary integrity of all other life forms on this planet. An open hand and a clenched fist will be required, along with a generous heart that dares to feel enough to grieve and lament what we are watching disappear and try to slow down the destruction we have set in motion. So I'm here today to ask you to dig deep into your generous hearts and dare to feel enough to grieve and lament what we are watching disappear and to slow down the destruction we have set in motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita Everett. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I haven't prepared anything. I just am speaking as a private citizen. I've lived here for 36 years. I love the wilderness, and it breaks my heart to see what's happening in times like these. And I would, first of all, like to thank everyone who has spoken in opposition to this mining process. I agree with every word that has been spoken. And some questions have occurred to me as I was listening to the original presenters. I didn't hear anything about, I heard one thing about water, I think. It was bypassed so quickly, I'm not sure. But I think Dr. Bellatoni mentioned they had received some sort of permission from a water commission. And that made me wonder why we're not talking about water. How will this mining process or drilling process affect our water table? We get our drinking water from our river. Grape Creek runs into our river. How can all of this underground activity not affect our water sources in some way? We also, we have such high winds in our area, and as the years go by, they seem to increase even more. The wind comes from the west, generally. What happens if this did become a big mining site? All that dust blowing? I live at the base of TZAC's gravel mining, and for all their efforts, the dust, it's like a dust storm when we have heavy winds. And if it's coming from something like a mining of heavy metals, what's the air quality like? that's coming over our town, is my question. And my only other comment is about, wastewater. Will there be wastewater? I don't know what, I saw heard no explanation of how gold is mined. Do they need to use the water, and then is it wastewater? Is it hazardous waste if it's coming from metals, basic metals? And how is that taken care of? And one last thing, I know from experience, because I seem to live in a ground pattern that helicopters frequent. They are really noisy, and they do not give you peace of mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 more requests, so I will ask again if there's anyone else who would like to get up and speak, if you would fill out a slip and bring it up. So next up is Bill Moore. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name's Bill Moore, and I live in Dawson Ranch. I'm just more or less have questions. I'm not for or against, but I'm trying to make sure I understand what's going on. And I'm afraid it's going to show my ignorance, but there's only one way to cure ignorance. So I see you've got a camera. Is there a recording of this meeting?
Yes, these meetings are recorded. They're available online shortly after the meeting is over.
Okay, thank you.
They're actually being watched live right now. On
Yes, they also...
Cable channel something, I don't know what it is.
91, I think, last time I heard. So they also are being televised live right now.
Thank you. I can go out and take a look at that.
Okay.
Also, Dr. Bellatoni mentioned that they were doing something east of the current cup. I thought I heard that, and I didn't catch all of that. And I'm just curious if there was really something going on east of the cup. Okay. Directional drilling was mentioned, and I'm not familiar with that. How far can you go in any direction when you're directional drilling? I'd like to know, especially since they're within a quarter of a mile of Dawson Ranch right now.
Okay.
If they're going to do that, how far they can go. And that brings to mind fracking. Since fracking is part of directional drilling, are they planning on using any pressured water or other liquid in this mining operation? And last question, Zephyr is exploration. How much of the promises we're hearing pertain to somebody who actually buys out Zephyr and does the mining? Whenever they say no open pit mining is going to happen, does that also mean that whoever buys them is not going to do any open pit mining?
Okay. We will try to get some answers for you when all of the public is finished speaking. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Carl Klink.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for hanging in there for us. It's been a long morning.
Yeah. Okay, again, my name's Carl Klink, and I live behind the Royal Gorge. That area they want to mine or drill or what, that is my front yard. I look out my door, I see that area. After the Royal Gorge fire, when they rebuilt the Royal Gorge Visitor Center now, when I look out there, I see lights all night long. Bright lights. Why do they need lights when this thing's closed? Then Rock and Rail sold out to whoever it is at that quarry, and you look to the north and you see lights, bright, bright lights. In the morning, if the wind is right, it sounds like they're in my yard with their trucks. All day, all night, I hear grinding. I thought they were on a certain time limit. So now I hear about this mine, and I listen to their speech, I watch their video, very interesting. I understand that technology is a lot different. Behind my house, there's a mine. It's a big gash on the side of the mountain, probably done about the turn of the century. I heard 1940s when they were looking for uranium. So we hear about this mine. I've heard it's going to be an open pit. They say no. I'm kind of listening and I'm saying, well, it's interesting. Okay, it's going to be underground mining. Until they showed the picture of the opening with those big giant trucks going into the opening. Well, on the outside, there's got to be an area to stage all of that. So it's not going to be no impact to our area. Now, when I look to the northeast, am I going to have to look at mining? Where are they going to come out? One gentleman said County Road 3. That's my road. Am I going to look at trucks hauling ore and stuff out of the back end of that mine? Or are they going to go down through Dawson Ranch? These are real concerns of the people that live in that area. I moved out there 14 years ago. I got a little spread. I run a few head of cattle. It's quiet, not anymore. The quarry is constantly going. Constantly grinding, blowing shit up, pardon my English. It's ridiculous. And now they want to put in a mine. Okay, it's a nice presentation, but in reality, it's going to be a nightmare. Water. We know that when you go up Copper Gulch, there's really not a lot of water up there. People are always hauling water. Where are they going to get it from? Are they going to drill that deep down to the water table? So, I had on my little slip for, against. I put 2 question marks. Now I'm going to change that to against. You guys up here, do any of you live in our area there? Any of you live up Copper Gulch? Any of you live on County Road 3? Well, look what they're doing to our area. And I want you to think about it. Don't sell us out. Mr. Javerneck is in the business of big equipment and grinding and moving dirt and all that sort of stuff. He sees a pot at the end of this rainbow. Okay? A friend of mine I served with in the United States Marine Corps went up to Montana in the mining boom, whatever, the meth boom, whatever they were doing up there. He became an alcoholic. Then he got addicted to heroin. He moved into meth, and now he's dead. Because they do. They work their asses off, and then they party.
Please watch your language, sir.
I'm sorry about that. They party, and now he's dead. So don't think it's going to be a great thing that's going to come to Canyon. We're going to bring in people that are going to work. Yeah, there'll be jobs. And there'll be more bars. There'll be prostitution. And there'll be other things, more drugs. And I hear we already have a problem with that. I don't necessarily see it that much. I love Fremont County. I love where I live. I do a lot for this town at Christmas time. So please, don't sell us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to get up and address the board at this time? All right, seeing none, we are going to close this public hearing. And
There is one more.
please be brief.
My name is Regine, and my one concern is about the water through that runs out of Grape Creek and then goes into South Canyon Ditch. So that's my biggest concern, is the agricultural aspects that are going on in the town and trying to build up more agriculture to keep the water here, as I know that a lot of the water is trying to get diverted, and Denver is trying to claim some of the water, so we're trying our best to keep the water here. And so my concern is the pollution and the residues that would come down into the South Canyon Ditch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you take one of those slips that's right there in front of you and fill that out for us, please?
Yes,
It's your full name. Thank you.
All right, one more final call. Anyone else? Okay, again, we're going to close this public hearing and ask the applicant to come up and make any remarks, answer any questions, clear up any kind of confusion that you think there may be.
Thank you for the opportunity to rebuttal. So I'm just starting through the notes that I have from the presentation, from the people who spoke. The comment to wait for the BLM and to not make a decision today. Zephyr submitted their application to the BLM in June, And it is a process of submitting application and then their experts requesting more information. And that is a process. And the BLM has a 30-day deadline, so that when I submit a letter, for a good example is I submitted my response to the December 23rd request for additional information on January 6th. They have a 30-day window to respond to me. They submitted a response to me on February 5th, exactly 30 days at 4 p.m. So I just got that last week, and I am working right now to have a response into them by by Wednesday afternoon, that is tomorrow afternoon. So I work to be prompt to respond to every question and concern. As it is, the gentleman is correct. Until we get the BLM approval, and it's a condition in the conditional use permit, if it's approved, Zephyr cannot explore on the BLM ground until the BLM approves the plan of operations. End of story, even if you approve the conditional use permit boundary. If you approve the conditional use boundary, the extension area right now, the area that they could explore in is Section 16, because that lease was signed a year ago, and those conditions are set, and the Colorado State Land Board is on board. So yes, the BLM, there can't be any exploration activity. Again, this is exploration until the BLM approves, whenever that is, regardless of your decision today, which I hope is in favor. Regarding County Road 20X, that was the roadway impact statement form was very difficult to complete because this is such an intermittent project. Zephyr will operate, potentially work 4 weeks to 8 weeks, maybe. So let's pick an average 6 weeks, and there's 2 pickup trucks. When they'd start to do activity at the Green Mountain claim, and just for the record, they are property owners. They own the patented claim, the Green Mountain claim, for which 20X was constructed to access that private claim. So they are landowners. That road was constructed for this use, and Zephyr has used that road to do its exploration and stake its claims, and it is it's fine as it is for the use of four-wheel drive vehicles. It's not meant for two-wheel drive and non-industrial type, a heavy truck, a heavy pickup truck. The reclamation bond is posted, $92,000 period. And the purpose of that bond is if Zephyr were to close its doors today, there is more than enough, as I explained. There is more money available for reclamation of more ground than is necessary. There is less ground that's disturbed in the bond that's available. So DRMS could hire contractors to go in and reclaim what needs to be reclaimed. So the bond is posted now for more disturbance than they have, and it stays there.
What was that total again?
Excuse me?
92.
92,000.
Thank you. 92 million.
90.
Oh, wow, you guys got a lot of money.
Did I say million? No, 92,000. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Wildlife impacts, the conditions, the restrictions on the Colorado State Land Board lease. The experts in the state of Colorado, for the purpose of being protective of wildlife and patrons of their use for hikers and mountain bikers and all of those people who enjoy that surface, those restrictions were imposed to protect those uses and the wildlife as well. And again, those U.S. Fish and Wildlife will likely be the entity that goes in, they're experts that go into the BLM area to do the exact same thing. And Zephyr, if they want to do exploration in the BLM, will have to abide by those restrictions. Zephyr does preserve trails. They return trails, they improve trails, they clean trails. I have picked up the remnants of the public using the lands back in the current CUP boundary, and I have filled in the fire pits that were left by the people who use the public lands. So Zephyr does protect and preserve and it is not, nothing is disappearing because it is in fact an exploration company. Water is used in the drill rig to lubricate the drill. I don't know what I'm talking about, Dwayne. I can see it on your face. But that water is repumped and recirculated back. It is collected in tubs, sediment settles out, then the water is pumped back and reused so that they can limit the amount they need, and then it's used just right there at the drill. Because remember, it's core. Now remember too, core. I am taking something out. There is a void there. So any sediment that is left in the tubs is used to seal the hole again immediately when it's done. So the idea of wastewater isn't really, it's water that's recirculated and then sediment that's pushed back into the hole.
So for this conditional use permit, that's a lease from Upper Ark Water, and it'll be trucked in?
The lease allows, can I ask Will, how much did we lease? 1 acre foot? I think we had to do one. We need less than. We only need about half an acre foot, but we had to lease 1 acre foot.
Oh, okay.
So what it allows for, and it is water availability. We all know how that goes, right? If it's a dry year, there's no water. So the lease allows Zephyr to pull they need 40,000 gallons per, I don't know the number, per linear foot or whatever. Okay. So they're allowed to pull that out of Grape Creek if Upper Arkansas says it's a good year and we can meet the lease requirements. I mean, so there's restrictions. Even though the line is signed, water rights matter, and Zephyr is aware of that. So the water would be we can't truck. There's no roads.
Okay.
Okay. So it would be in the area that would be pumped to the tanks and then used to drill into the hole. And there's usually tanks underneath the wooden platform is where they usually put the water. Okay.
So that would be pumped out of Grape Creek, because Upper Ark Water only has so many rights in Dewey's Reservoir, and that's what they're releasing to you guys.
That's what's been signed. Yes, sir.
And it has to be a good year.
And it has to be a good year. Yeah, otherwise Mr. Skanga's going to say no.
Okay.
So, hold on a second. So you're going to pump it out, it's going to be hauled up there by helicopter and put in those other tanks?
No. Okay.
Or you're going to pump it clear from Grape Creek up to where
to the tank. They're going to tubs, to tanks.
By the drilling site?
By the drilling site. Usually.
How far away is that?
Wherever they can make it work. I mean, well,
Well, that's what I'm figuring, and it's gonna be uphill.
It's going to be a pump. They lay a hose across the ground to pump it into the tanks.
It's quite a pump.
This is not this is not easy, but those are the conditions for the water. 24/7, let's be clear. 24/7 is when the drill is operating. And 24/7 does not mean it's a 24/7 helicopter. The helicopter takes the supplies to the site where the wooden platform is built, which happens it takes approximately 30 minutes round trip. So leaving where it picks up supplies, takes it out to the site, it has to take something back. That, when it's building the platform, might happen 6 to 8 times. But once the operation starts running, then it's as needed by radio. You know, if the geologist on the platform says we need a helicopter to take out core, then the helicopter will bring in a supply or whatever other thing, potentially 3 to 4 times a day, so less than half. So the helicopter isn't constant, and we kind of figure, again, this is the helicopter expertise, and I don't know what I'm talking about. We'll decide what is safe, and we did figure out it is about, from the time they pick up the material, come back, go out, and come back, would be a total of about 30 minutes. It's not 24/7. All right. This is exploration, and I guess that's what I kept hearing, is lights and mining and waste from mining and trucks from mining, and that's not what this is. This is exploration. So a drill rig, if we do traditional drilling, let's go back to what's happened to date. So there's a big flatbed that has a tracked drill rig on it that goes in the first day, drops off the drill rig, and he goes away. That's one truck in and one truck out, and the drill rig is set there. Now, you have a geologist and his partner, and you have a driller and his partner. There's 2 pickup trucks. They go in at the beginning of the day, and they go in at the end of the day. They do very long. If they need supplies, of course, they go in and out. And they may have, if it's traditional, in the existing CUP, they had a 400-gallon water truck that would make a couple trips a day. So the traffic trips are very limited. They're not constant. And they're just that couple of weeks, few weeks when the drill rig is on the site. Just want to impress that. In closing then, I moved to Canyon City in 1993. I came here with a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old baby. I have been in business for over 20 years, representing our community and bringing projects to our county, this board, the Planning Commission. And I want you to think back, not that any of you are old enough, but to some of those that I were with was Joe Rawl and Mr. Shower and Keith McNew. It was back in those days. I'm sorry. Maybe one person is old enough to remember.
We were in a different room then.
Yeah, that's it. That we were in a different room then. And I chose, my daughter asked me, she said, "Mom, do you like trash? You sure spend a lot of time studying it." And I said, "No, everybody generates trash, and I believe it has to be done the right way. And I want to learn the right way, because God said, go forth and prosper. And he didn't say to do that with your hands tied behind your back, because the other thing he said was be good stewards." So when I chose to do what I did and to study pollution prevention and remediation at Rutgers University, I did it because I believe there is a right way to do it. And if you look back at the history of my projects that I bring before you and the state and whatever entity else I have to get permission from, I don't represent projects that I feel are not good for our community. I represent those that I think are good. And I'm on the front line telling clients that won't work. I did that one time, by the way, back in 2013 to Zephyr on a potential partner they had. And I called up Mr. Comparato and I said, I think we need to part ways because this guy I don't like. And in a few days later, Mr. Comparato called me back and he says, that just wasn't a good fit. And on we go. So I am here because I love this community, and this is where I live. Again, this is a 21st century metal project. We already talked about all the dependency on metals. It's odd that we accept the advancements in medicine. Look at cancer treatment 50 years ago versus today. My father worked for IBM in the 50s. I grew up believing that IBM stood for itty-bitty machines, when those computers would have had to occupy more than half of this bottom floor just so that Justin and Kathy can add and subtract. That's the changes that we've had. But it seems that we are distrustful of the environmental science that goes in being protective of us today. Metal dependency. We have building codes now that require metal. Just zinc is the El Plomo elephant, one of the metals that seems to be prominent here. If you go to the EPA website, 2017, they said that 25 million tons of waste metals were generated in 2017. 33% were recycled. So if we just take zinc out of that, the demand for zinc, let's go galvanized metals, what a benefit we experience with that metal galvanizing. Only 30 to 40% comes from recycled. 70 to 60% has to come from something else. It's a bit of a dichotomy because metal and mining, you're right, is temporary. By nature, it has to be, and it's bonded. Residential communities, on the other hand, are permanent. Metal exploration is bonded for reclamation. Residential properties that are abandoned, left, are just that, abandoned and left. Metal exploration is supposed to be seen and not heard, as required by lease conditions, conditional use permit conditions. But anybody who crests that wonderful hill that we were talking about and looks to the southwest sees what used to be hunting and hiking area that is now Dawson Ranch. And I'm standing before you as a hypocrite because my home that I am building and hope to move into in a few weeks is in Dawson Ranch. But it has become a developed area that was once wilderness. We've talked about the well-paid career opportunities. This includes engineers, hydrologists, geologists. These types of jobs allow people, enable people to retire and purchase homes in Dawson Ranch. Members of the Royal Gorge Preservation Organization, they have enjoyed good paying career jobs, and now they want to deny that to young people living in our community. As a member of FEDC, one of the topics we talk about constantly is how do we get our young people to come back? Where are the well-paying jobs to entice them to return? Zephyr is one of those possibilities. Once again, Zephyr is exploration. 21st century regulations, 21st century technology. It is asking for 3 acres in an over 25-acre area. It has
25,000.
What did I just say?
2,500.
Keep me straight. 2,500. Thank you.
Not
4 government agencies. 4 government agencies. It has been a member of our community since 2012, and I respectfully request that you consider approval.
All right, thank you. Further questions for the applicant?
Yes.
Come back.
So Mr. Moore asked you a couple of questions, and I'm curious too. Directional drilling. How does it work? And how far can you go?
Yeah, we could be involved in directional drilling, and the only reason why we do that is to minimize the number of drill sites. We can get onto one drill pad and direct the drill whichever way we wish. And if you get deeper down, and as we're talking about drilling deep holes, yeah, you can put a device on the end of your bit so you can guide it to go this way or that way. But this is totally different than oil and gas drilling. There's no fracking involved whatsoever. And of course, the depth of the holes, gets somewhat limited in the mineral industry. We cannot drill holes the same depth they do in the oil and gas business. I mean, you hear about holes that are going down, 20,000 feet and that kind of thing. Well, that never happens. I mean, if we drill a 2,000-foot hole, which we have probably planned in El Plomo, that'll probably be about the deepest that we would go, maybe 2,500 feet. These are very expensive holes. We're trying to raise the capital right now for this drilling in El Plomo. We hope to drill 4 holes. We might be drilling 2 or 3, and probably going to cost somewhere in the vicinity of $400,000 a hole.
So you told the planning commission it was $600,000 a hole.
This is a bit of a moving target right now. It depends on the helicopters. We haven't gotten the numbers from those guys yet, and the drilling contractors. We're going back to them. Maybe it's going to be $600,000. We're hoping to keep it down. But let's round it off to $500,000 a hole, but puts it into context versus the holes that we drill. If we can just have them truck supported, which is would be half that. Yeah, so there's no fracking involved. That would answer Mr. Moore's question. And I guess on a broader sense, I think that we've demonstrated that we do things correctly. We leave our drill sites properly abandoned. The DRMS comes in and inspects our drill sites after we have drilled to make sure they have been abandoned properly. If they see there's been some residue left from one of the drills, we have to go back in and clean it up. And typically it's the drilling company, because we signed a deal with their contract with the drilling company, and they are required to follow very specific rules, and they cannot leave that site until it's clear, and we tell them it's clear. So, I think we've done things correctly. I think DRMS would concur, and we will continue to do so in the future. And I just want to sum up here that this is exploration. I keep hearing everything about mining. We're not in a position to even address most of those questions because we don't have a mine planned at this point in time. I think when we get to that stage, if we're fortunate enough to get to that stage and we do a feasibility study, then all those questions will come to the table, and then we can discuss them with the community at that point in time, and you people as commissioners, whether this thing is going to be the right thing for the community. But at this point in time, it's strictly exploration.
So I want to fall back to water right quick again.
Okay.
I'm still got questions about that.
Yeah.
I read it in here, and I'm having trouble finding it. How many gallons of water does it take to go a foot with that drill?
How many gallons? Ooh,
Yeah.
I wish I had that number in my head.
It's
Lauren
in
Comparator
here.
usually handles that.
So it takes a lot of water to drill a 2,000-foot hole.
I'm thinking up in the last holes we drilled up on Dawson Mountain. We were drilling 300 to 600-foot holes there, and we would use a tanker truck a day. So that gives you an idea of the number of gallons. But I can't give you the exact gallons, but I can get that number for you because our VP of exploration would have those numbers off the top of his head. As the executive chairman, I just don't deal with those day-to-day aspects of drilling, and I just don't have that number.
Well, I'm still just wondering how you're going to get water from Great Creek up to those platforms that are so far away and have that much water available.
There would just be a small. It would just be a small. Don't forget we're using tubs out there to collect the water, and we're recirculating that water down the hole. So that's just pumped up. I mean, it's just having the right size of pump and the right size of hose, and we have probably 2,000 feet of hose just sitting in our facility here in Canyon City. And if we need an extra 1,000 feet, we'll get an extra 1,000 feet.
So will you helicopter, sorry, Commissioner, will you helicopter the pump in and then set it up, or?
I believe that's what will happen, yeah.
Okay. Well, in the Planning Commission minutes, it states 50 gallons of water per linear foot.
Is that where I read it?
Okay, that'll be the number then. Thank you, Angela. Sorry I didn't have some of those details, but I know that they're there.
But it's still recycled. I mean, it's not like
Yes,
it's new water every time.
absolutely.
So after you get done drilling a hole and you have that tank of water left, what happens to it?
It's back down the hole.
All of it goes back down the hole
Yeah,
with the
it's
sediment.
so dry that, a lot of it just gets absorbed in the soil. But don't forget, it's just clean water.
It's just
I
water,
mean, it's
no
just water.
chemicals whatsoever, water and dust.
No, sometimes they'll put a bit of clay in. If we had a fracture zone with the drilling and we lose circulation, then they'll put a clay in the water to fill those cracks so we don't lose water, to keep the drill bed properly lubricated. Bentonite usually.
Could you also address his question about what you have planned to happen east of your current area? I believe I know the answer, but would you explain that once again?
We have no plans.
There's
in the east.
nothing happening
Nothing
to the
happening
east. This application does not include anything to the east of your current location.
No. And in fact, as during Angela's presentation, you saw those claims to the east, contiguous with where our Dawson deposit is and Dawson Ranch. There's a buffer group of claims there, which we have no CUP on, which we're not exploring.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I will ask staff if you have anything further that you'd like to clarify or discuss.
So I just want to clarify on the roadway impact analysis form. It does only have to be completed by an engineer if the increase in daily traffic is 30 vehicle trips per day. A vehicle trip is one way, so that'd be a one-way trip, so it'd be 15 vehicles per day. If it doesn't exceed that, then the applicant can complete that form.
All right, thank you. Questions for Sean? No. I have one comment that I would like to make. I would just like to note that we have received quite a bit of written information as well as the spoken testimony here today. And I want to assure you all that we will be considering all of that testimony as well when it arrived during the public hearing time frame, and we do have a lot of testimony both in favor and opposed to this application. So I just wanted to make that clear to you.
Well, Madam Chair, we all have a whole lot of notes up here that all three of us took. We have a lot to digest. I moved that we table this CUP 12-003 to February 25th so we can digest this and make a decision at that time.
I'll second that.
I would like to add, we often table major considerations and decisions to allow us time not only to deliberate, but to create what we would consider a set of findings that allows our decision to be guided in the direction of the information that we listen to today, and things that we find to be true from the information from the applicant, from the speakers here as well. So I also think that tabling a decision to our next meeting under old business, which will be 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, February 25th, to allow this board to deliberate and to create a set of findings for this decision. Is there further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you all so much for being here today and discussing your concerns with us. There is no further business to come before this board. We are adjourned.